and welcome to The Content Bite, a podcast for freelancers who use their words to make money. I'm Rachel Smith, a freelance journalist, copywriter, and content producer. I'm also the founder of Rachel's List, a jobs board and community for Australian writers and other creatives.
And I'm Lynn Testoni. I'm a journalist and a content writer as well. Rachel and I are your weekly co-hosts, and every week we're bringing you all kinds of tips, tricks, and some fabulous guests to help you make the most of your freelance business. This podcast is sponsored by our good friends at Rounded, easy accounting and invoicing software made just for Australian freelancers and sole traders. It's everything you need to make freelancing easier. Find out more at rounded.com.au.
Also, if you're a gold member of Rachel's List, Rounded is giving you 20% off an annual subscription plan. Upgrade to gold membership for all the details.
Hi, Rach. How are you? It's been an up and down week this week, but it's good to catch up on work, and I'm trying to do that. I'm just back from WA and trying to get back into work again.
You've been very busy. You've been in WA. You've been holding the fort on the podcast without me because I've been sick.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think I've spoken to you for 2 weeks or something. It's like
that's
the longest
a record.
Time. It is a record. It is a record.
Yes.
But I'm back, and we're doing a great guest episode today with someone that we both know and love, which is quite nice.
Exactly. Another fabulous guest. We've got Claire Isaac. And shall I do the intro this week?
Please do.
It's so interesting to read a bio of somebody you feel you know.
I know.
But Claire Isaac has been a magazine editor since birth.
I love it.
Okay. She's worked on some of the biggest titles in the country, from pop Bible smash hits to Women's Day, Cosmo, OK, and everything in between, and is connected with women of all ages. She started the podcast Playing Devils Avocado, one of my faves.
I love it.
With colleague Lisa Sinclair in 2018. And the pair released a book in 2019, How Not to Live Your Best Life, a guide to growing old disgracefully. Claire's currently working as editorial director of TV Week and Who on a maternity contract, and she divides her time by filling in senior roles for long-term stints and writing for a variety of magazines and content agencies, including Medium Rare, New Idea, The Big Issue, and more.
Oh my God, welcome, Claire. It is so great to have you on the podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me. What a lovely intro.
Yes, it's so nice. It's an amazing career, Claire. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about how you started and what you're doing now?
Sure. I began in pop magazines. So my first full-time job was on TV Hits. And then I moved to Smash Hits, where I interviewed, all of those 90s pop bands like Take That and East 17 and all those people, New Kids on the Block. And I loved that. That was all I wanted to do when I was at school, was work for Smash Hits. And so I sort of achieved that. And then I was like, oh, I don't know what to do now. But I left there to move into women's mags. And I've been in women's mags of some form or other then for most of my working life. And I'm currently filling in, as you said, as the editorial director of TV Week and Who on a maternity contract.
Wow. TV Week was like my first sort of freelance job, long-standing job. When I started freelancing 20 years ago, I became their movie reviewer for 10 years.
Oh, that would have been a good job.
Yeah, it was awesome. I did TV Week and NW.
Right.
That sort of catapulted me into freelance land, really. And I still have a very fond spot for that magazine and for Emma Nolan. I know she's not there anymore, but she was part of the furniture at R Media for so long, wasn't she?
She really was. And she really made TV Week what it is, I guess, and what it still is today, really.
Yeah.
And teen magazines are so much fun too, because I spent my early years at Dolly, and I do think it's really fun it's like redoing teenage years, but doing it when you're a cool kid.
It really was. It was just an amazing experience. I was such a fan as well, and such a fan of the mags and of the bands and things like that. So it was really it was like being given this key to meeting all your heroes, and I really enjoyed that writing, that style, really funny and really kind of quirky, and also reviewing things and all that sort of stuff. So it really stands you in good stead for future career, even though it seems quite light on, and sort of silly.
That's so true.
Yes.
Oh, you have to be really accurate too, because I tell you, those readers know everything.
Oh,
they'll pick you up on anything.
I got some terrible hate mail. I really did. Who do you think you are?
Oh my God. Well, it sounds like you've got like a really varied job at the moment because you're doing TV Week and you're doing Who. So talk us through how that works. Like, how do you manage both and keep it separate and all of that?
Well, it's probably not as interesting as it sounds, really. I mean, really, I'm there to support the editors of both magazines. And I also do a lot of, the advertising side, like working with the commercial opportunities and that kind of thing for both mags. And they're very similar, like they're considered the entertainment mags in the way that the category is set up at R. So, they both look at a lot of TV and movies, and streaming is really big, obviously. And so I basically just look at the covers of the mags, make sure that I think that they're going to work for the market. I work with the editors and their teams to sort of nut out special issues and that kind of thing. I do a lot of commercial stuff, as I said. So I talk to the brand managers across both titles and sort of work out what we can do to make any extra money and what we can do to sort of grow the brand across different platforms, because obviously magazines aren't selling as many copies as they used to. And so I do, and so like the Who's deadline is a Tuesday, so we'll send the cover on a Tuesday. Tuesday's a very busy day, and then TV Week send on a Thursday. But it's a different kind of brand because it's so it just, it's so set in its ways in a way, TV Week. Like it's, it does what it does so well. And it's not a newsy magazine, so it's not having to sort of work out what's going to sell that week. It's just very much about what the readers want, which is those sort of gorgeous interviews, or it's the big dynamic kind of action shots from Home and Away on the cover. So we sort of just talk through all of those things all week, every week. And in between that, I read some proofs. I try and come up with ideas for covers for both. And basically I'm just there as a sounding board. I think that's really what I'm there for most of the time.
Yeah. Wow. You must have been watching the Neighbours finale.
I was watching it, questioning why Kylie Minogue wasn't talking.
See, I didn't get that far. I was trying to watch it and my husband said, I can't watch this crap. And he turned it off and made us watch the BBC. So I was reading your comments on Facebook thinking, what, Kylie didn't say anything, like literally nothing at all?
She had like 2 words. Everyone seemed to say that she wasn't paid enough to have a speaking part, or she wouldn't accept a speaking part for the money that they were paying her. I don't know if that's true. But it was really weird. She said, "Oh, Harold," or something like that at one point, and then she said, "Home sweet home," and that was literally all she said. So it was very strange. I mean, they were only really there as candy, as sort of excitement. Guy Pearce was amazing. It's funny. I was talking about it today, and someone was saying, when you see someone of that caliber on a show like that, it really just sort of shows the sort of faults with the show. But I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it. It was very moving. I think my husband would have absolutely hated it, but he's away, so that's fine. I could watch it with
so you got to watch
it. Fantastic. You talked a little bit about how magazines are not selling as much and they've been going through a really tough time. But do you think people are really positive about the future of magazines? Where do you see that going?
Yeah, I think they are. I think that we all know that mags will never be the same as they once were. We all hear tell of, people lamenting that magazines have changed and that we used to sell millions of copies and now we don't, and all that kind of thing. But I do think there's a loyal readership of magazines, especially the ones that I work for. And it's about the brand moving forward, I think. So it's keeping readers engaged however they want to, so they want to engage on social media, on the websites, giving them what they want, where they want to get it. So I think that even though magazines themselves probably won't be as big as they ever were again, there are ways that you can keep that brand and that sort of experience alive for readers. And I do think there's also going to be a number of, we can see it. We have very strong sales for TV Week, for example, every week. So there's a lot of people who still want to buy that paper product. I understand that people are like, oh, magazines are going to die. And in some ways, some of them have done, and a lot more of them will. But I still feel like there is room for them, and there's room for the brands that exist alongside those magazines, for sure.
I love that. And I think, what you said is, where you meet the readers where they are and all of that sort of thing. Do you think publishers are becoming better at that? Because I think when everything was, starting to go downhill a little bit, there was this sense of, well, why can't you harness that digital world in a better way? And why can't you engage the readers where they are? I mean, where do you see the opportunities coming from?
That's very true. That exactly is meeting them where they are. And also the publishers really are aware now, I think, that you can't have a siloed digital team and a siloed magazine team. They have to be one and the same, or working towards the same goal at least, you know. So we've done a lot of work in the last few months on some of the brands in the weekly titles about what we're going to do 6 months from now, 2 years from now, 10 years from now, or whatever, and what readers will want from those brands in that time frame. And so advertisers as well want that. They still want a place to advertise for the people that those brands have access to. So I think that there will always be places that, you know, like we can work together either in a digital place or in a paper place to get to those people. And I think they'll always be around in some form. We'll just add to it, you know, like we'll start taking the brands more online. And some of the brands like TV Week, for example, you know, their readers are older. The online space for them isn't necessarily a place that they're comfortable necessarily right now, you know, so we can take them on a journey to help them along the way to get a little bit more savvy in that way. Whereas brands like Who, or, you know, some of the other younger brands, or Elle or whatever, they have a really strong digital following already and a very big footprint there that can only grow, and we can only be more clever about the way that we use that content online. So I think there's lots of opportunities, and I do agree, or maybe it wasn't agreeing, maybe it was just I do see that there is a place for publishers to move much more as a, you know, a brand moving forwards, as opposed to magazines and digital, you know, like they're just one and the same, a 360 degree thing.
Now, Rachel and I know that being an editor is not that glamorous, really. It sounds glamorous. And I've never really worked on a weekly magazine. I've only done the sort of monthly ones. How do your days pan out? I mean, you talked about a bit. Is there a lot of stress?
It's funny, because I worked on monthlies for a really long time. And then I remember I worked on OK when we went from being a monthly to a weekly, and we literally had workshops about how the difference in working and like how you do it. We actually had people acting out how it would work and how we would make the workflow work. And it was absolutely terrifying to me, because I just thought I liked that sort of monthly pace where you had 2 weeks where you didn't do very much at all, and then 2 weeks where you were just crazy. And I mean, you just kind of shrink that down into a week. So you have a couple of days which are really, really full on. Then you have one day where you kind of recover, and then you go again. So in terms of my day, like I have a lot of meetings. So, I mean, obviously the editors of the brands themselves are doing all the work. I just have a lot of sort of top line meetings with people about things that are really irrelevant to that week, usually.
Long-term strategy, that sort of stuff.
And but also a lot of kind of, I like to say we push a lot of paper around and do a lot of busy work, you know, when actually the people that are making the magazines are pulling their hair out because they're understaffed and, you know, they're having to write 8 pages on Brad Pitt or whatever. You know, we do there is an ebb and flow, you know, and we have a lot of ideas meetings, and I catch up with both the editors who report into me sort of a couple of times during the week. And as I said, like Who's deadline is a Tuesday, TV Weeks is a Thursday. So the workflow kind of goes around that. It's very collaborative, and everyone's really busy, but you can still have time to have fun and have a lunch or two and get to the shops maybe once a week and, you know, try and have a life outside work.
Do you like being back in-house, or do you kind of miss your home office and that sort of thing? Because I know you were freelancing for a while then.
I do like it a lot, actually. I was surprised by how much I liked it. And I think maybe it was because during COVID, of course, no one saw anybody. And then I think now, because we've got this sort of 60-40 split at work, you have a couple of days at home, which means that you can sort of revert back to that cozy jammies, like newsreader style, top half looking okay and bottom half just with slippers on or whatever. and get your work done at home, and then you can go into the office and have that creative buzz that comes from talking to people, you know. And there's nothing I hate more than 50 million Zoom meetings where you could have literally just gone to someone's desk and go, what do you think about this, or do you think we should change this, or whatever. So I do like that part of the office. I'm surprised by how much I enjoyed it, actually, because I thought I was really set in my ways and loved being at home with the cat, but the poor cat has to do without me a bit more.
Yeah. And I know you're still doing your podcast. I'm sure that there's some crossover with our listeners and your listeners who would know about the podcast, but tell us just a little bit about how it came about and how long you guys have been doing it for and that sort of thing.
Well, I'd wanted to do a podcast for ages and ages, and I kept on trying. When I was at Women's Day, I kept on trying to sort of set up this podcast department of Bauer Media that no one ever wanted to have anything to do with, and it was always really stressful. And of course, I didn't have any proper ideas or anything. I just really wanted to do it. And so then one day in 2018, I just sort of said to Lisa, we should just do one. We really should just do one. And she didn't really want to, I don't think, at first, but then we came up with a really good idea. Well, what we thought was a really good idea, just to us to just be complaining about things. And playing Devils Avocado, obviously, is that play on words about, you know, we're trying to sort of mix things up a little bit. It hasn't necessarily always panned out like that, but that was what it was supposed to be. So we started in 2018. So we've done 4 seasons now. We're just in the middle of our 4th season. We have a little hiatus because I've been on holiday. And it's going well. It's still going well. I mean, it's a hard slog, I think. And everyone, you will agree, I know, that doing a podcast every week or you know, semi-regularly even, it's a lot of planning. It's a lot of, I do all the production and the editing and stuff like that. So it does take up quite a lot of time.
We outsource that. I take my hat off to you, my God.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, if you listen to it, you can probably tell that I'm not particularly professional. So yeah, it takes a lot of time, but we really enjoyed it. And of course, from that, we got a book deal.
Yes, that was our next question. Tell us about the book.
Yeah, well, it was good. We just got approached by a publisher on LinkedIn, and then we kind of went into a bidding war with 2 publishers. And we ended up, which was not really a bidding war at all, but like we had 2 people interested. But Lisa and I were both working full time at the time, so it was actually quite hard. And because it was published by Bauer Books, who normally do a lot of cookbooks and things like that, they didn't have an awful lot of resources to sort of help us. So we were doing a lot of our own editing, to coming back to sort of at the end of the day, we'd have to go down to the book department and sort of edit the book. But it was really good. It was a really good experience. It was hard, but it was really good. And the content wasn't so hard because we sort of knew it was just an extension of the podcast. You know, it was things that we were complaining about as women who are sort of in our late 40s, early 50s, dealing with the menopause, dealing with working, dealing with idiots, you know, like dealing with men, you know, sort of working out how to sort of get through life.
Now?
Yeah, what hurts now? I mean, because on the podcast, of course, we sing our own jingles. You can't sing your jingles in a book, but we did our best to sort of get that message across. But yeah, it was good, and it didn't do too badly. I think it came out literally sort of just as COVID was hitting in 2020 by the time it came out, and so everything we did was remote, which was a bit tricky, and I don't think we couldn't really drum up as much excitement perhaps as we would like, but it did okay. We were happy with it, and I think all books are hard unless you're a best-selling, you know, fiction writer. I don't think that anyone these days can say they made their fortune. We certainly didn't, but it was an enjoyable experience, and you know, it was great to get a book deal out of something that we were so passionate about doing anyway.
Yeah. Would you sort of advise people who have a podcast like to do something like that, even if they're self-publishing? Because you've got so much content, don't you?
Yeah,
really?
I think the more you do something like a podcast where you're constantly talking and you sort of finesse your opinions about things, and you start, and you know, you have it's sort of really good to write that down. It certainly was for us. Like, it was good to sort of be able to think that we had something to say about aging, you know, and probably before doing the podcast, we wouldn't have really thought we would just thought we were whinging to each other, you know, but actually we had sort of a following of people who agreed with us, you know, that aging isn't great, that your skin does go a bit shit, you know, or, you know, that your husband can be annoying, whatever. So it was sort of good. It made us feel like we knew what we were doing. So I do think in that way, writing it down has been really useful. And I would recommend, if people have the time, it's not an easy thing to do, write a book, I don't think, if you have a full-time job. But if you have the time and the energy and the desire, I say go for it.
Yeah. And a built-in audience who'll possibly buy it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly right. I mean, I can only imagine that, you know, there's like 1,000 people on our Facebook group, and I can imagine every single one of them probably bought a copy.
Yeah. Well, that's what publishers are looking for. We've talked about that before when we've had publishers on. And I also have heard that new authors, which you and Lisa would have been, had a harder time in COVID. While people were still reading books, they were tending to read existing and sort of...
Yeah. I agree. I think also we were all doing that thing, weren't we? We were looking for comfort. So we were watching TV shows we'd already seen before and going back and watching our favourite Seinfeld episodes and things like that to give us that comfort. And so I imagine it did go across the board to books as well. So never mind. You live and learn.
I know that between contracts you've been freelancing and doing some more content work. Yeah. Has that been an easy transition? What did you learn?
It wasn't an easy transition for me, but that's why I did it. I thought that I was at Women's Day for a long time, and I could just see, as I said, I wanted to do podcasts. That wasn't happening. And at that time, there still were those silos that I referred to earlier, you know, so that digital was one spot and publishing was the other spot, and there was nothing in between that sort of bridged the two. So I left Women's Day and I went to work in digital at 10 Daily, which is now no longer. But I loved it because they were really kind to me and they let me learn on the job, which I don't think a lot of people would get that opportunity. And then I was working with the lifestyle team there, which I also loved. I thought it was an interesting experience also because you really can see, even now, you see the amount of rubbish that gets put online, you know, like that tendency to sort of publish those clickbait things. And 10 Daily sort of really tried not to do that. Like they really tried to have good writing. And I think that was probably their downfall because that's what gets the numbers, obviously.
Yeah.
But from then, I've done a lot more other things. Like I've done a lot of kind of commercial work for various brands. I've done a lot of work for medium rare and things for AMP and different things like that. So it was good in that way. It really got me out of that magazine mindset and into a sort of more content mindset, which I've really enjoyed. And I like keeping that up, which is why I'm still freelancing and I haven't gone down that route of getting a actual full-time job, even though the contracts I'm doing are long-term, obviously.
It's nice to mix it up.
I think so. I think it just keeps it interesting. And I think if you can do it and make a fairly decent wage for yourself, then why not?
You're definitely one of those people who's managed to stay in magazines, you know, largely in magazines and still get the content work on the side. Whereas I know that I used to do all magazines and then moved in totally different direction. And I still miss my magazine work and think about it, but there aren't the pitching opportunities I think that there once were. I mean, do you still use freelancers, or is it really just, you know, you're fighting a losing battle if you're trying to pitch?
We do use them, but I think they often have freelancers that they've used for a long time.
That's
and
what
they
I
don't have
thought.
the budgets to sort of expand that stable very much.
Yeah.
But we also find it hard to get new freelancers a lot of the time because there's a very specific style to those mags that often people can't quite grasp. You know, it's chatty,
Fast
but it's also
too.
truth. And it's not that sort of real clickbaity kind of digital stuff, so it's hard to come back to the mags from elsewhere, but at the same time it's not long form, so you can't wax lyrical about someone's lounge room. You know, you have to sort of get in there and have the good stuff. So it's a hard line. And so I'd say, you know, like there is opportunities for freelancers and that there is opportunities for people to pitch, but I just think you really have to be able to walk the walk and talk the talk to get the job
back in.
Yeah,
and perhaps you've got the staff already that's covering most of the content. So,
and to be honest, the budgets are so small. You know, magazine budgets are much smaller than they used to be. And so if there's a really great story that someone has or a really good interview, or, you know, we obviously will pay then. But really, a lot of that stuff you can just write yourself, and it's, you know, it's easier and cheaper that way.
Yeah.
We often ask our guests about tech tips, and because it's nice to sort of give a practical takeaway, are there any digital tools that you use and you recommend?
Oh God, no, I'm such a Luddite. Seriously, I have a MacBook Pro. I record the podcast on a Zoom call with Lisa at the moment, and I use a blue mic, and then I paste that file into GarageBand, and then I edit it myself. So, I mean, I'm really not the good person to ask. I mean, we use Teams a lot at work, which is really useful and certainly has kind of revolutionized the way that we work as a team at work. I like Trello, but then I use notes in my phone to remind myself of everything. So I'm not really a very good tech person. I have Sony noise cancelling headphones, which are probably my biggest extravagance, but also a godsend. But that's it, really. I really don't have any great digital tools I can recommend.
How do you plan out everything that goes into the podcast?
We have a Google Doc that we work in.
Yeah.
So and one of us will share with the other one, and then we'll just start writing into it, and we do that every week. And then that's those kind of tools, I guess, have revolutionized the way that you do anything, because you'd have to sort of send an email and then you'd have to reply. And so at least we can work, at the same time in something and kind of create an episode from scratch. And, we know what we're going to lead with. We know what we need in terms of the sections, like you said, What Hurts Now we have, or Culture Club, or and we can sort of cut and paste accordingly and make sure that we've got something for every section that we want that week. And but it's still very basic. I mean, everyone uses Google Docs, don't they?
Oh, there's something to be said for that. Wow.
Yeah.
I use it a lot more than I did.
Yes.
I want to transfer all my stuff onto Google, the Google Suite, and not have it on my computer anymore. Just have a completely clean filing system on my computer.
Honestly, I was thinking about doing my tax today, and then I looked on my computer and I just went, no. I don't have time to wade through all that today.
No, exactly. Oh gosh. Well, Claire, thank you so much for sharing, your experiences and your thoughts about, the aspect of the industry that will interest everybody, because so many of our, listeners come from magazines. And I think that they'll find it really useful, just
good,
for someone in-house who can tell it like it is right now. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. And so tell us where people can find out about you and buy your book. And I don't know if you're still taking on freelance stuff on the side or not, but.
Well, I guess you can find me on LinkedIn. Or our podcast is called Playing Devils Avocado, and you can find it wherever you get your good podcasts. So Spotify and Apple. The book's available online. I just had a check. It's still there on Booktopia, Angus and Robertson, Dimmicks, etc. So you just type in how not to live your best life.
And it's very funny, everybody who hasn't read it.
Yes. And we have a Facebook group called the PDAs, which is a sort of like a Bible. We've got about, as I said before, 1,000 or so members who just really love the podcast and get really involved. So if you want to sort of see what those women are like, you're more than welcome to come and join the group.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic.
Very funny. I love how you talk about your favorite things that you're trying, especially from Aldi.
No, yeah. Hashtag not an ad.
Yeah, hashtag not an ad. You had a bit of a stint with Caro milk there for a while. I was like, she's really into Caro milk.
I really was into it. And in fact, it was getting a little bit out of control. I was hiding bars of it in the cupboard from my husband. And
it is. It's a very funny group, actually, for anyone who's sort of interested.
Yeah.
And in that 50.
I think we're both members of it. Yes.
Yeah. It's really great.
Oh, thank you, Claire. It's been so good to get to know you a bit better and hear all about. I've never worked in those weekly magazines, so I found it really interesting and quite fun. Yeah, it sounds great.
I think the word is madcap that we're looking for.
It's a very serious job, and it's not like we have enormous teams. And I really should give credit to the guys that all work there. They work really hard. And as small teams now compared to what it used to be, and they all just do amazing jobs, and I'm just there to sort of move things around and make sure that it's all going smoothly. So I can't take any credit for the success of the magazines themselves, but those guys do an awesome job.
Yes, gosh, it's amazing. Well, thank you again, and we'll be back next week, probably with another guest. I'm not across it because I've been sick, but Lynn knows everything, don't you, Lynn?
I do, which is why I should say thanks to our sponsors,
Yes.
rounded.com.au, because they're easy accounting and invoicing software made just for Australian freelancers and sole traders. So you can find out more at rounded.com.au.
Thanks, Rounded, and thank you, everybody, for listening. And thank you again, Claire.
Thanks,
Claire.
All right.
Alrighty. See you next week. Bye.